Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Clangin and Bangin with Mikey, episode 287. And first things first, happy Father's Day to all the fathers. You know, happy Father's Day to all the guys who want to be fathers. Happy Father's Day who like to the guys who can't see their kids because of whatever reason. And happy Father's Day to everybody who's lost their dad, man. And this day, like for many other people, it's difficult for me too. I'm not gonna sit here in front. Um, those of you who've been watching the podcast for a minute, that's some good coffee as usual. Um, y'all know that you know me and my dad didn't have the best relationship. And I've recently gone to therapy for that too. I mean, for a bunch of different things, right? But mainly because my brother passed it and everything, and it's like I knew I needed help. You know, I knew I couldn't, just pretend everything was okay when it wasn't. I knew I couldn't just pretend like, oh, like I'm fine, like this is gonna pass. This like this is a phase. Like, no, my nigga, like grief is real, bro. Um, and and it's crazy because it's like people deal with grief in so many different ways, right? Um, people deal with grief in so many different ways, and some of it is good, some of it is bad, or whatever it is, right? And but a lot of it has to do with the fact, like, can you do you know when to get help? Do you know when to say enough is enough? Do you know when to, as my ex would put it, take the mask off? And me going to therapy, I've been in therapy for about 2 or 3 months. Um, and we made quite a bit of headway because it's like I've done the internal work. Um, not just with grief and everything too, but it's like with everything that comes with it, right? And I think a lot of people they wait till something bad happens, or they wait till something like catastrophic happens, where it's like, yo, okay, now I'm gonna go to therapy, but like, in reality, it's like it's not that one thing. It's something that happened when you was a kid. You know, your inner child wound, and like that shit's real. And it's like I was walking around with so much shit on my head because of how my childhood, played out, how everything played out, and it's like, yo, and it's like recently, the topic of kids came up and everything too, and it's like I can see myself being a dad, which is, if you ask me like 3 years ago, 2 years ago, I'd be like, nah, hell no. Now I'm like, yo, it'd be cool to like bring 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 new life into the world, and like it would be great to do that, but it's like with the right person. Because I think a lot of people will. I think a lot of people they have a tendency to like, oh well, I'm just gonna have kids or whatever it is, and it's like no, having kids with the right person, it it makes a difference. It really does, like, and I'm not talking about like, just because you make certain amount of money, whatever it is, it's like, or I'm talking about like how do you deal with somebody who who's emotionally available, or like how do you deal with somebody who just has traumas and triggers and whatnot, right? Are you are you gonna run from that run from that individual when shit gets difficult? Are you gonna run to somebody else, when in a time of need, when in reality you should be going to your partner, right? And I hate to say this, but there's a lot of females that have kids with bum dudes who in turn become bum ass women. And what I mean by that is like, if you stick on social media long enough today, you'll probably see it. Happy Father's Day to me, 'cause, since I'm the mom and the dad. I'm like, nah, bro, that's not the flex you think it is. It's not. Um, and I think a lot of people will just, instead of them taking accountability, um, and understanding that, like, yo, like, you're a part of this, a part of the problem too. It's like one of my homegirls loved to go to deaf, college friend of mine. Like, we was having a conversation. I said, like, look, I said, like, how many times can you have the same conversation with somebody before you realize that you're not, like, you're no longer, you know, discussing the problem. You are the problem. Forget becoming the problem. You are the problem. And she was like, "Wait, what?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "You're asking somebody to give you X, Y, and Z, and they can't give you that. Why are you still there?" You know, it's like the old age, which your adage where, like, when people break up, like, it's usually the girl wants to be like, "Oh well, can we can we try to remain friends for what? We didn't work out as a couple. Why the fuck would I want to be friends with you?" And it's true. It's like, why would somebody want to be friends with somebody else that, you know, it's pretty obvious that, it's not gonna work out. Because if it didn't work out on that level, then why would you want to be around somebody on in a friendship capacity? I'm gonna tell you why. Because it's like they want access to you without having the responsibility of being responsible to you. I'm gonna say that again. They want access to you without the responsibility of being responsible to you. What I mean by that is everybody has a responsibility to an individual, to a certain extent, right? If you're in a relationship with somebody and it's exclusive, it's like, you know, obviously it goes without saying, no, you can't cheat, no, you can't do X, Y, and Z, no, you can't, you can't do single type shit when you're in a relationship, right? You know, whereas if you're on a friendship level, you don't have to tell anybody anything. You can move, you can shake however you want to move and shake. But what it comes down to it is that I think a lot of people, instead of them taking accountability and, like, understand, like, yo, okay, like the situation is what it is, and does it suck 100%? Um, it's also something that a lot of people don't want to take accountability for. Um, and it's always interesting too when women want to paint themselves as the victim, and I'm like, okay, but how? Why? Because you were an active participant in this, in making kids with this individual or having kids with this individual. You knew what it was after the first or second kid, but you still decided to have kids with this individual, and it's like, what for? Like, how bad does it have to get before you realize that, yo, like, I am the problem, you know? And, like, that to me is always interesting because it's like, number one, um I think women like that is like, they're uh, they're special, and when I mean special, I mean it's like, not in a good way. They slow. um I used to have this female friend of mine, right? She would tell me X, Y, and Z, but the more and more she talked about the situations, the more and more I realized, like, oh, it's like, it's not them, it's you. And she was like, wait, what? I was like, you paint yourself as a victim in all these situations, and it's like, it's not them, it's you. Like, you don't want to take accountability for anything, so you sit there and you come up with these excuses to, try to excuse your behavior, and you can't. It's like, same person. um she's going through a divorce, right? And she tells me, and like this is when we first started being friends. And I told her, I was like, okay, like, and like the topic of divorce, I don't know how the topic of divorce came up, but the topic of divorce came up. And so she's telling me that, like, sure, yeah, like, like, I found out that, that my my soon to be ex husband then, my ex husband now, he was cheating. He he was cheating on me with you all, like, X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, okay, like that's a legitimate reason to get divorced. I'm thinking that they got divorced because he was cheating, and and like, so we're talking about it, and she goes, well, in actuality, is like, I didn't get divorced because of him, because he was cheating. I'm like, oh, then why'd you get divorced? Like, make it make sense. She goes, well, I got divorced because I wasn't happy, and then she goes, well, during the divorce proceedings, I found out he was cheating on me. And then I asked her, okay, but who filed? Who filed for divorce, and why'd you file? She said she filed, and she goes on to explain, well, I filed because I wasn't happy. Okay, but I said, yo, how can he cheat on you if he's already legally separated? And how did you find out he was quote unquote cheating on you? And she's like, well, look, the girl showed up to the one of the divorce hearings. I'm like, he didn't cheat on you. He was legally separated from you. He's free to do what he wants to do. He's free to date who he wants to date. No, he didn't cheat on you. And then she was like, wait, what? I was like, no. I was like, you may believe he was cheating on you. You may had your suspicions, but you had no proof. Like, he's able to move and shake how he wants to move and shake. You know, um, Saying somebody cheated on you and having no proof is asinine. It's actually fucking stupid. And I've had that happen to me too, and I'm like, bro, it's like, what are you talking about, right? Like, you have no proof, you have no evidence, you've done no research, you just going off fucking emotions and feelings. And my point in all of this is, like, a lot of women will do that. Like, they'll go off these feelings and emotions and not realize, like, yo, it's not them, it's you. And I think having platonic friendships is extremely important. And when I say that, it's because and I don't mean to sound sexist or anything like that too, but a lot of women are fucking delusional. You know, they'll sit there and, like, talk about these issues and talk about how men ain't shit and this and this and that, and, like, in reality, it's like, yo, like, men ain't shit, but you keep picking these shit ass men. You know, when I was younger in my 20s, I used to I used to have another female friend of mine, like, and she's like, oh yeah, if I could find somebody like you, Mikey, X, Y, and Z, and I'm like, but you're not gonna find somebody like me, because I'm right the fuck here, you know. And granted, like there was no romantic, feelings there, at least not on my end, because there wasn't. And I was like, yo, and I said, like, okay, like, if you're looking for a guy like me to date, and if you had me as a friend, why don't you give us a shot? You know, like, you already know how I am. You hang around me more often than not. So why not get up for, why not give us a shot, right? Only reason I said that is because she brought that up. And when she kind of shot me down, I'm like, okay, cool, but it's like, don't complain to me when you dating, when you're dating somebody else who's a, you know, not to say that they're a bad individual, but if you're dating the same type of dude, don't complain when you get the same result. Because it's like, this individual, she would date dudes who would just cheat on her. And I'm like, Ma, you really can't get mad at that, because you picking these motherfuckers. Like, these are niggas that you picking. So at the end of the day, it's like, it's your fault, and 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 my whole point with this whole Father's Day episode is, like, it's like, women have to be more careful with who they have kids with, because it ain't no fucking 18 years and I'm done. Like, no, my nigga, this is a lifetime contract. Like, yeah, legally your obligations may be, your financial obligations will be done at 18. In some cases, if the kid goes to college, up to like 26 or some shit like that, right? But legally, in most cases, it's 18 years and you're financially done. Morally, you're never ever done. You know, morally, you're never done. You know, like, and I think that's where a lot of people get it fucked up at. It's like they think, oh, at 18 years old, I'm done. I'm cool, whatever. No, you still, excuse me, you still have to teach your kid about taxes, credit cards, how to properly save money, do X, Y, and Z. And I'm not saying go, don't go out there and splurge on yourself, have a good time, whatever it is, because people should always do that. Facts. And like you should, you should always, go out and have some fun, blow off some steam, whatever it is. The way I look at things, and like the way that I see things, it's simple. It's like, be mindful of who you have kids with. Ask the hard questions. You know, um, go see the credit score report. Ask if they got any debt. Show them, you know, to see if they got any debt, whatever it is, and like, or if they got any history of like family mental health, any type of like health history where it's like, genetically, linked issues like heart, liver, kidneys, whatever it is. It's like, ask those questions. Like, get routinely screened for certain things, right? Especially black people. And a lot of black people have a abundance of health problems because we don't go to the doctors. We don't believe in going to the doctors or whatever it is. And it's like, yo, it's like, before you lay down and have kids with a motherfucker, have those tough conversations. Like, don't sit there and think like, oh yeah, X, Y, and Z. Like, I can do whatever. Like, no, the fuck you can't. You know, like, you can't. Like, you can't do all the shit that you want to do. Like, no, it doesn't work that way. And I think a lot of people will benefit more from just asking those tough questions. It's like, or like, how's your relationship with your mother, your father, whatever it is, or even yet, spend time with the parents if the parents are still alive. You know, um, hell, the girl I'm seeing now, like, she asked me point blank, like, are you in therapy? It's like, yeah, 100%. And she's like, for what? You know, so we started talking about that, and because she's in therapy too, and it's like, when I was younger, I used to think like, damn, you in therapy, my boy? What the fuck going on? Like, but now that I'm in therapy myself, I'm like, yo, it's like, going to therapy, like, the stigma behind it is bullshit. You know, it's like, you're supposed to go to therapy to get better. You're supposed to go to therapy to try to understand yourself and come up with coping mechanism skills and, appropriate things that help you get through the day. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're going through life and like you saying nothing bothers you, my boy, you a fucking liar. Um, and it's like, that to me is crazy because it's like a lot of people will be like, oh yeah, X, Y, and Z, yada yada yada. I'm like, bro, but you're asking somebody to, like, what do you call that? You're asking somebody to create a life with you, and you're not willing to do the internal work to get better. And one of my other homegirls who's also in therapy too was telling me like, yo, it's like, well, before I even started therapy, she's like, yo, I know you going through your shit because you just lost your brother and everything too, but I want to tell you something. It's like, don't go to therapy just because shit's bad. Go to therapy when shit is good too. You know, have that unbiased check and, have that unbiased, conversation, and just having somebody there to listen to too, right? And because that makes all the difference. She's like, a lot of a lot of us don't go to therapy, because we're scared of being judged, we're scared of doing X, Y, and Z, and um and that's what it is. It's like, and my therapist too, like, she told me something. She's like, after a couple months of talking with her, she's like, yo, like, I can see that, um that you've done the internal work. I can see how you talk and how you present yourself and how you articulate yourself. Is like, you've done the work to get better. Like, there's key things that you say, you know, that tell me, like, okay, like, he's actually done the actual work to get to where he wants to be. In terms of where where you're at right now, right? Which is true. And I think that's also important too because a lot of people will sit there and say, "Woe is me," this and this and that, yada yada yada. I mean, I've had girls, come online and say like, "Oh, I can't believe my kid, I can't believe my friends allowed me to date a bum." I'm like, "Nah, shorty, they told you, you just wasn't fucking listening." And now look at you, you know, you're stuck being a single mom to a bunch of kids and you got a bunch of dudes on your line that just want to fuck, you know. And honestly, it's like you put yourself in that situation, you know. You allowed yourself to get played with. You allowed yourself to get embarrassed. Multiple fucking times, and it's like you think you have options. You don't have options. You are the option. You know, and it's always interesting to me when people get online, especially on Father's Day or whatever it is, especially on Father's Day. And if you got some bum ass dude that you had kids with, and they want to be like, "Well, Happy Father's Day," to me too. I'm like, nah, bro. Nope, 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 nope. It don't work that way. It doesn't work that way. And what's also refreshing too is seeing the content that some of these female contenters are creating, especially about Father's Day and how the women want to say X, Y, and Z, and they're like, "Yo," and like this one female content creator that I follow, she said, instead of you blaming the men for the piss poor decisions you make for the kids that you have, how about you blame yourself? How about you take some accountability for your actions and understand that it's you, nobody else except you. And a lot of people will get butthurt about that. Like they'll sit there and get offended, but it's in reality, it's the truth. It's like you don't get to ignore all the red flags, thinking that he or she will change, and then get mad when those same red flags don't change. It's like you had all the examples of what the fuck is gonna happen, but yet you didn't fucking listen. You didn't want to see that shit, you know. And the one thing that a lot of people will regret, re- regret later on in life is wasting all that time. Now, don't get me wrong, kids are great. Like I said, I want, I want kids. Now that I'm older, I'm like, yeah, okay, I could see myself being a dad. You know, straight up. And And the way I look at it is simple. It's like having kids with the right person, having those tough conversations, and understanding that, like, yo, it's like it may not be the most optimal situation, and if if it's not optimal, leave it alone. You know, having a baby is not going to change him. It's not going to change her. It's only going to create more dysfunction in a dysfunctional relationship. Like a part of our job is to undo the trauma that we've experienced, undo the trauma that we've endured. You know what I mean? It's like, and I don't mean just black folk. I mean people in general, man. Because there's so many fucked up people walking around. So many fucked up people, just like so many broken ass people walking around. It's like, bro. At the end of the day, it's like you have to realize that it's up to you to break that cycle. Whether it stops with you or whether you don't want to have kids, whatever it is. But me personally, not that I was ever against having kids, because I wasn't. I would just, I was just more afraid of becoming like my dad. My dad was very emotionally and physically abusive to a point. He was a smart individual, 100%, but that nigga was a demon. And I remember telling my mom something. I was in my mid to late 20s, and my dad had already died. And I was like, so we was talking about something. And I said, like, yeah, I said, hey, mom, is like, I held off having kids because I always felt that I was gonna be like pops. And she was like, "Huh, son," she's like, what you went through was it was traumatic, but at the same time, it's also your responsibility to undo that. You know, it's also your responsibility to you know stop that cycle of trauma. And she's like, at the end of the day, my mom told me something I'll never forget. She said, "You have an example of who not to be like. Do the opposite. You know, instead of you, you know, instead of you like instead of you acting like your father, who is critical, not supportive, not emotionally available. You know, be the opposite of that. Be supportive. Be emotionally available. Um, be critical, but also be loving too. And it's like, and that's what I try to do. I try to be like, okay, cool. It's like, but yeah, um, I try to be supportive. I try to be critical, but at the same time, showing love at the same time too. It's like, but the one thing I won't ever do, I won't sit there and coddle you, bro. I'm not gonna be like, oh yeah, X, Y, and Z. Like, no. Especially when people talk about their goals and everything, and I'm like, okay, that's great, but it's like, what are you what are you doing to get to those goals? Because it's one thing to talk about them, it's another thing to actually go out there and conquer them. You know, and hell, I get it. Life is difficult, life is hard, but it's like at the end of the day, if everything was easy, everybody would be doing what they want to do. You know, and I think that's where a lot of people they differ at because they're like, oh well, X, Y, and Z, yada yada yada. It's like, yeah, I was like, yeah, I understand that, I get that. Life is difficult. We all have you know, pitfalls and valleys and peaks, whatever it is, and everybody goes through something. It's like it's ridiculous to think that life is easy because if life was easy, you know, struggle wouldn't build no character. I'm not saying self-imposed struggle. I'm not saying X, Y, and Z. But it's like if you want something done, you have to do things that you've never done. And it's like when I used to be a competitive bodybuilder, it's like okay, cool. Um, I'll be like okay, like what I got to do to lose, what I got to do to lose weight. Cool. I gotta have a diet plan. I gotta follow that diet plan. I got to do X, Y, and Z. Um, and consequently, it's like I gained about a pound and a half back, but it's probably like I didn't eat enough yesterday. I didn't sleep well, so that could be a whole different bunch of things. It's like my body's probably most likely retaining fluid, because I didn't sleep well. Um, but at the end of the day, it's like you have to be willing to do the uncomfortable things to get to where you want to go. I'm not a person that you talk to about goals constantly and like you're gonna complete them or you're not. I don't take excuses because it's like I can't be more. What's the word I'm looking for? I can't be more. I shouldn't be more invested in your goals than you are. You know, I shouldn't be. And that's the one thing about me that people love and people hate because I'm like, yo, it's like either you gonna do it or you're not. I used to have a cousin of mine. I used to, I still, a cousin of mine, not past tense, present. A cousin of mine. She had always talked about going back to school and finishing up her bachelor's. I'm like, okay, cool. And this is when she was in her 40s, and so I was like, yo, I was like, oh, it's like, I was like, cause of at one point in time, and like she's like 14 years 14 years older than me. Like she's like probably in the early 50s. Anyway, um, so I was telling her like, yo, it's like okay, like you can you're gonna be 45 one of these days. You can be 45 with a degree or without a degree. The choice is yours. And I think a lot of people like when I say shit like that, like they get offended, like they get offended. I'm like, yo, it's like, but you over there talking about your goals. You over there trying to, you over there saying X, Y, and Z about the shit that you want to do. Go off and do it. You know, make it happen. I'm not saying that it's gonna be easy because it's not. And if it's easy, it's probably not worth it. That goes for anything, the job, the relationship, whatever it is. Which brings me back to that former female friend I was talking to you about. Well, she's like, well, well, Like this should be easy. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be so hard. I'm like, nah. I was like, if you think life is gonna be easy, that explains everything that you've been through. You know, that explains why you think your ex-husband was cheating on you and there was no fucking proof. That explains why you got divorced and X, Y, and Z. And it's like, yo, at the end of the day, it's like you can't expect people to sit around you and just allow you to play victim. It doesn't work that way. Um, and I think it's weird, honestly, straight up, that there are some people out there that will do certain shit just like this, and they'll sit there and play victim, and you really can't, man. You have to learn to leave people where they're at, and you have to learn to understand that not everybody can come this journey with you. Everybody got to walk their own path, and it's like at the end of the day, you have to realize that it's also up to you to get better, to do better, and to be better. You know, if you want better, you got to do better. You know, like I said before, like if you want something different, you have to do different shit. And it's also interesting too because a lot of people will say, "Woe is me," and you really can't sit there and say that because at the end of the day, you're the one that chose this. You're the one who did X, Y, and Z. You're the one who's put themselves in a situation, and you can't complain, man. It's like so to wrap all this up. Happy Father's Day, like I said in the very beginning, to people who have kids, people who want kids and can't have kids, people who um, people who lost their dad, for whatever reason, um, and people that just want to break the cycle. Happy Father's Day to them too. Um, and I think that's the most important thing is to realize that we all gonna get there, man. Like we just have to realize that it's up to us to break the cycle. It's up to us to understand that we all deserve better. All right, y'all. It's about 33 minutes of your life that y'all won't get back. Hope y'all keeping the four P's: private, player, positive, and pushing. I'll see y'all next week. Love y'all. Like I always say, know your worth because you're better than what you are. All right, y'all. Peace. Have a good Sunday. Happy Father's Day to everybody out there, man. Later.